What's good, team? It is MurderInc. We are talking about the new champion everyone's going to get for free today if you're watching this on release, if you've been logging in every single day to claim those rewards. As we can see, the champion's Deliana and English 148 chat is popping off. I'm sure you're going to be seeing this for the next, I don't know, 1 week, 2 weeks of everyone getting this champion. So the question remains, what type of accounts is this champion going to be good for? How can you build her? How can you use her? So let's get right into that. Alright team, so here we have Deliana here, High Elf, Legendary, HP based champion. Now listen, something surprised me about this champion after reading her kit, seeing what she did. I made a video as soon as they announced, or it was figured out and they announced to me kind of early on, about decreased resistance coming into this game. I made a long video, and the main thing that I pushed to Plarium and recommended, especially in that video as well as other messages, was you need a way for accuracy to scale with this champion without the players having to build accuracy on top of that. And much to my pleasant surprise here, they added my exact recommendation on this for what they should be doing going forward. What are we talking about? Let's just dive right into this passive here. We have Magnificent, and oh, how magnificent it truly is. Passive effect increases this champion's accuracy by 2 for every 1000 HP this champion has. Makes a lot of sense because it is an HP based champion. I said, please, this should be baseline on every decreased resistance champion because it's going to be so hard to combat a heavy resistance type champion if all we have to do is outstack it with accuracy. It's just too hard. Yes, you can waste a slot and bring an increased accuracy champion on top of that for the extra buff, but it shouldn't be the point of adding a champion like this to the game if another champion is literally required to even debuff the target to begin with. I also did recommend making it so it cannot be resisted. Of course, they probably assumed that was too overpowered to launch with a champion that's going to be free. So before I get into the second part of the passive here, let's talk about who this champion is going to be good for. We do have early game, mid game, late game, and end game as far as the classifications of progression goes, as far as I refer to at least. Unfortunately, I do have to break the bad news to the end game players first here. You do in fact have a better shot of pulling 3 Void Legendaries from a 10 Void Shard pull than you would of getting some crazy upgrade to your champion roster if you are already end game. But I'm pretty sure you know that, and you can just kind of scan through any new champions kit and say, okay, well, this is going to be nice to have. Straight to the vault, faction guardians, maybe empower it, see if someone can come up with something fun to do with this champion, but this isn't going to be the champion for you. However, once we start moving down the scale here, early game she's going to be pretty good. She's going to start to really shine in the mid game, and I do think she's going to meet her maximum potential in that early late game phase all the way to the end, just before end game. So now that I just went over who can use this champion, let's see what she does. So we already talked about the passive here, which is fantastic. Now the active effect, we have a strengthen going on all allies once this champion, being Deliana's, HP drops below 50% for 2 turns. Amazing addition to that as well. So first, let's start off with the A1 ability, Heart Stealer. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing Leech for 2 turns. 50% is very high for an A1, specifically for an AoE A1, so another awesome addition to this. And in my opinion, already off the bat, between the A1 and the passive here, she's probably the second best free champion to come out in this game. I would say second only to Ninja, because Ninja does have rather long usage across the board here. Moving on to the A2 now, and I mean, really quickly before I move on, books, you don't need to book the A1. 60% chance, of course, is better than 50, but this isn't a game-changing debuff by any means, being Leech. So moving on to that A2 once again, 4-turn cooldown baseline, attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing decreased resistance by 50% for 2 turns if the target is under block buffs, which we will see in the A3. Also applies debuff spread, taking any decreased resistance debuff on the target and placing it on all enemies. So we already get to see the high need for accuracy on this champion, specifically if you're targeting any type of unit or enemy player for that matter with high resistance. The books here do in fact increase that debuff percent chance all the way up to 100%, but I don't think you're going to need it, and I'll explain that after the A3. And of course the cooldown is reduced by 1 if you fully book it. Now we have Know Your Place and that A3 baseline 5-turn cooldown unbooked. This is another AoE attack here with a 75% chance once again of placing a block buffs debuff on each enemy for 2 turns, healing all allies by 5% of their max HP for each block buffs debuff placed by this skill. So most content you're going to see either a 20% heal if you're in the Hydra, or a 25% heal assuming everything lands, and you do place this on normal dungeon content here. So the heals aren't massive, but listen, a heal is a heal. This isn't going to be a healing champion by any means. Yes, we have the leech here. It'll be much better, and I guess you can get away with considering it a healing champion in content like the Hydra, where it's a long sustained fight, but pretty much in all dungeon waves it's going to be very hard to justify this champion as a base healer and support unit on top of everything else she brings because of how much harder it would make it to gear. But we do have another really cool thing on the A3 here. Fills this champion turn meter by 10% for each block buffs debuff attempt blocked or resisted by the enemy. I like this a lot. I really wish they would have added kind of a benefit to not booking this champion. Let's say if the debuff chance isn't applied with that 25% chance of missing here, then you also get the 10%. I guess I can see why they didn't do it. Free champion is a free champion, and kind of benefiting you for not using books probably isn't in their best interest, even though it would benefit the players greatly here. So rounding off the kit, we do finally have an ally HP aura in all battles by 33%. Huge for sure. This could have been just another filler aura that only applies to Doom Tower, only applies to, I don't even think Faction Wars is a thing, but only applies to affinity based champions. Thankfully we haven't seen those in quite some time here, but we did get all battles and by 33% on top of that. So I definitely like the aura for sure. Now let's get to the books here. Listen, the main content I found a use for this champion is going to be the Hydra and the Doom Tower. Now the first thing that should jump out to you when I say that is going to be this costs no energy. So there's no penalty in resources, which should be on everyone's mind and concern, whether you're free to play or spending, just to get that maximum efficiency out of this game here, because that means you don't have to book the champion. Yes, of course, booking this champion is going to increase the quality of life and is going to increase the consistency of this champion, but you don't really need consistency on that high of a level. 75% chance is very high as it is, and you do get that benefit on resisted or blocked attempts from that A3 here, but all you have to do is restart the key or restart the fight in the Doom Tower. So with that being said, if you want to book this champion, you just have them lying around and you really want to focus on Hydra, it's the last thing you have to do. By all means, go for it, but this is one of the few times I can say this champion doesn't need books to shine, simply because you're not going to be using her mainly, in my opinion at least, in any type of content that requires energy, where you really have to make sure you have a 95 to 100% success chance, so you're not wasting any time or money on this game if you are spending on energy, or just energy as a whole, because listen, energy gets you gear, gear gets you more progressed, and you don't want to be inefficient with that aspect by any means here. So now that we went over that, let's talk about the gearing process, what I did, how you should build this champion here. So of course I'm using 6-star gear. This is going to be among the higher threshold gear. This is just what I had in my inventory, so I didn't have a chance to kind of downgrade it. What you can do is apply what you see here as far as the ratios go between health, defense, speed, resistance doesn't really matter, just happen to be on a few pieces. Then finally accuracy on this champion, and scale this down slowly to whatever content you are doing or wherever you are progressed in this game here. So first thing to talk about is, let's think about the HP to accuracy ratio here. That's going to be the main talking point for this champion and should be in any type of content you watch on this champion here. So we have 76,000 giving us 2 points per 1,000. That is 152 additional accuracy that we can't see here right now. We cannot see it because it only applies once you enter any content you're in. You're going to see the tooltip fly above our head with the name of the passive here, and you will know that's applied here. So that is a ton of stats here. Why is this so good? for the end game players, and you can kind of get the idea based on the gear I'm using here, that's not really going to help me much. It's very easy to hit those thresholds based on the gear you would have if you are at the point where I'm at in the game, where you've been farming for a long time. But everyone knows once you start entering that spider farming stage, it's very, very difficult to get your hands on an accuracy banner on top of that accuracy with speed banner for whatever champion you're trying to build. So what does this do? If your champion has 30,000 health, you're getting 60 additional accuracy for Deliana here to make sure she's applying her debuffs, which is, like I said, I can't stress it enough. Plarium hit this out of the park with what this does for early game players here. If you have 45,000 health, you are getting 90 additional accuracy total for this champion without having to worry about it. So it's not going to be as good as a banner depending on what level of banner you can secure for it. This lets you build even more HP in the banner slot if you're lucky enough to get an HP banner, or you can just throw defense on it, whatever works for you in this champion. But this takes off lots of strain on people who don't have their great hauls fully maxed. They're not on page with the faction guardians, because that's also a very long-term goal to have as well. And you can just use what I did here: 4 pieces of speed gear, 2 pieces of perception gear to make this champion work really well here. I do have 270 speed because she's going to be used later in this video in the Doom Tower on one of the higher stages, so we want to make sure she's going before to apply the important block buffs, debuff on the champions to really see your full value in that aspect of the game. But the general consensus of the gearing is going to be, as I'm showing you here, just scaled down to whatever content you elect to do for this. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be the masteries for this champion. If you're going to mastery her, what do you do? Mine doesn't currently have masteries on it because I'm probably not going to use her being an endgame player, but if you are, what do you do? Personal recommendation, since she has leech debuff, I do really like the War Master aspect of this to give her additional healing. But if you are struggling to reach the accuracy you desire, you can absolutely head on down to Eagle Eye, or as a counterpoint to that, you can head to Elixir of Life here, which is going to give you 3,000 health on top of 6 accuracy. Now, of course, 6 isn't a ton of accuracy, but it's better than nothing, right? If you don't need a ton of accuracy and just want survivability, you don't need that extra damage or healing from the War Master, it's definitely a viable option to head on down to Elixir. Or if you're doing Hydra, you know you need resistance. This opens up so many things for you. You can head to resistance, say, I don't have to worry about accuracy now because I'm getting that extra accuracy from, of course, the HP passive that I'm going to be rambling on about for a long time here. So first, we're going to do the basic build. This is what I would recommend for the offense tree here. Defense tree, if you're fine on accuracy, I would just go with the normal clan boss rotation here, where it's going to be on the defensive and mitigation part of this, reducing as much damage as possible, and with the counterattack options for this champion, since she does have an AoE that also applies leech on her, and you can fill this tier 4 row as you see fit. Now, if you do want to go on down the support tree, on the other hand, I probably wouldn't take Steadfast here, 810 health. Maybe it'll save you, maybe it won't, but if you're looking for accuracy, that's the main point of going down this tree. You're going to want to take pinpoint accuracy here. Heading on to Charged Focus, then I would personally recommend Arcane Celerity for a boost to your turn meter based on debuffs expiring, since you're probably getting enough accuracy to where 16 isn't going to be a huge deal to you. If it is, of course, take that. Then you can head on to Lore of Steel here. Finally, Master Hexer is going to be a nice solid choice here on top of Sniper. If you're not booking this champion, now you just increase your odds of placing the debuff from 75 to 80, which is going to be huge for you. And then finally, looking at that tier 4 row once again, we have no options in the offense tree row, but we do have a Cycle of Magic here, which I would recommend. Roll the dice, see if you can get lucky and get that 5% chance. It'll make your run smoother, since most of the content we're talking about is going to be RNG based anyways. So these are my personal recommendations. Of course, tune this properly based on your account, the champions you have, the synergy you have. It's really hard to make one guide for every single player in this game, since every account is different and no account's going to be the same no matter what anyone says. So now that we've established that, let's talk about, unfortunately, I don't have a Hydra key to run. Those keys have been used for the week. But one thing I want to mention before I talk about the main use, in my opinion, for this champion, Spider. She has interesting spider potential if you are struggling on a green stage here, making her weak affinity. She's going to be best paired with a counterattack champion. And of course, counterattack champions are not common. You have Valkyrie, you have Skull Crusher, who's also red affinity, so he's probably not going to be the best bet. But you do also have Valkyrie, who Valkyrie's probably the best pair. She gives a shield and a counterattack and nothing else here to pair with Deliana here. What does she offer? She offers that AoE on the A1, so you can add a stun set to this champion. You're also applying a leech. You have an additional AoE for another chance at proccing that stun, while it is going to be RNG here. Or you can go with the retaliation set, giving her a chance to counterattack on her own here, applying that leech debuff, giving her enough self-heals here. And to make things even better, this is going to be a little bit harder based on the fact that she scales off of health with accuracy. If you wanted to build her with no accuracy, you could definitely do that as well, just completely avoiding the need for leech here. You're going to get tons of turn meter and lots of chances to keep stunning the enemies over and over again here. And you know what, just out of curiosity, at the end of this video I will test that out, so stick around if you want to see a zero accuracy build in Spider just to see what happens. So moving on to the main use of this champion, how she's going to be good here, let's head to stage 118 on the Hard Doom Tower, which will pretty much show the purpose of this champion outside of the Hydra. The Hydra build will work for this content. I know there's a lot of players that are still struggling to get all the way through the stages of the hard Doom Tower or the normal Doom Tower based on your progression levels, but this champion is going to be a fantastic addition here. So what does she do? She reduces the amount of RNG, and that's basically what you want to do in this game. Reduce RNG, get your success chances as high as they can be to make sure you have a smooth run. So the first thing we're going to do is apply the block buffs, because what do we have going on here? We have Sir Nicholas with Unkillable. We have the shields he applies, so it didn't land on one champion, which means he can be affected by that Unkillable buff, so we can just go ahead and use our Mashald here for that resist. We also have the option to steal the buff if we need to, but we're just going to go ahead and A1, get some AoE in here, and then we'll cycle through here, let them get some turns. We have Sandlash Survivor, which is going to be slowly protecting the team. Let's just throw out this AoE here, extend the duration of our buffs here. Now we can apply the single target block buffs on the remaining Sir Nicholas that didn't have it placed by our unbooked Deliana here. Now we can use this A2. It won't be too effective in something like this. I probably should have just used the A1 here to let my team kind of get more heals out, making sure they're healthy for the upcoming waves. But the main point is to show this first stage here, the potential of block buffs with the CC champion, even though Mashald's kind of stealing the show here. But just hear me out. What happens if Mashald's True Fear hits that 50-50 mark and Sir Nicholas just ignores it and applies an Unkillable? That's a point in time where you'd have to just reset it and start again until you got the odds you needed. With Deliana, that's not the case here. Now you have an additional layer of kind of bad luck prevention that you can use with this champion on top of everything else she does offer. So let's go ahead, just kind of put this on auto here. I mean, I probably shouldn't have done that since we are about to go on to the next stage here. But once again, we're not really here to show a team clearing all the way through the Doom Tower. We're just trying to show you the basis of this champion, how you should be using her in any type of content you want, whether it's campaign progression, dungeon progression, or of course the Doom Tower. So we lost a champion here. We don't have the revive up. We just used our turn meter boost. So I don't know, it's not looking the best as far as going forward to the next stage. Let's just see what we're working on, because this has a lot of damage coming out and we have no turn meter boost here. So we decrease the turn meter there. Let's just go ahead and lock out any cooldowns we can. You know what, we're going to do this on Sir Nicholas here. And nothing good. We really wanted that A1 here. Now, if you wanted to use Evil Eye, you could do that. It would have reduced effectiveness, of course. But we're going to take a ton of damage. We're probably going to get one shot if the Xavias do in fact get a chance to get a turn here. And there it is. So luckily no one died yet. There's the first death. There's the block revive. So main spotlight champion down here. Unlucky with how I used the cooldowns by manualing it. But The basis of the idea is what I just showed you here, and where you can use this champion to really shine throughout your account based on the champions you have and the synergies you have available to you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get rid of pretty much all of our accuracy. Just as much accuracy as possible. We'll replace it with resistance anywhere we can here. Okay, we're at 207 now. No accuracy there. We do have it on the neck. So I'm going to check back in with you guys once I have this built, and we'll test that theory out in the spider and see what the deal is. Alright, so unfortunately, even with no masteries here, she has 140, but we get 160 from the health here. So 300 accuracy, of course, is very high. No matter how low I bring the health, it would put her in danger of dying here. So the only thing I could think of is getting rid of as much health as possible. And even still, I really don't think that's going to be enough, but I can try it. Just to say we tried it here, 49,000. Still going to be enough accuracy to land these debuffs here. We do want resistance. We do want speed as well. We can get rid of the banner for sure. We can get rid of any form of HP. I do have a blood shield ring to give her kind of an additional layer of survivability that doesn't count as health. So hopefully 80 plus 40, that's kind of the accuracy check for this. So even with all this, I still can't get low enough to where it would make too much sense, but I said I would try it, so I'm still going to stick to my word, and I'm going to try this anyways here. Let's go ahead and just go to stage 24. Let's replace one of these champions with the one we're talking about, which is going to be Deliana. See what she does. Is this going to work? Maybe. We definitely don't want the HP aura. We want as little accuracy as possible. Let's just get rid of this. Let's add a speed champion here with Arbiter to see if she gets a turn. And let's see if this works. So in theory, she should be targeted throughout the fight, despite Cold Hearts having low health as it is. Her being negative affinity should be a clear threat indicator for the Spiderlings here. Go ahead and use this A1. We did decrease the turn meter. It's whatever. Now let's try to boost our turn meter. And we got weak hits. We didn't get any turn meter here. So as I suspected, the accuracy is too high to do, unfortunately. And this is kind of why I said if your end game champion isn't going to be as useful. If you're early game, this is going to work out pretty well because you won't have the great haul that I have. You won't have the faction guardian bonus, and it's going to be much easier to build health, get a little bit of accuracy, but really get to take value out of that turn meter boost you would be getting from the A3, cycling through the A1 over and over and over again, getting those extra chances to stun the targets here. So maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. Let's just put on auto and see what happens. Although I didn't turn the A2 off, so I don't know. It is what it is here. Or she just dies straight off the bat. Okay, once again, no turn meter gain here. She is staying pretty consistent as the target, which is good, even though things are going to collapse after a few more hits here. And of course, no Heart Seeker. So, okay, my idea failed when trying to replicate it live. This is one of the few times I think I've ever seen a downside to having very high gear and content here, which is good news and bad news for obvious reasons here. If you want to add an additional layer of survivability, you can go the route I suggested earlier. Using a blood shield ring with the War Master talent would of course be the smart play, getting additional damage. Or you can just pair it with someone like a Miscreated Monster, a Krisk. Any high HP champion with a shield set would do just fine, as long as you're not stacking HP on Deliana herself here, giving her too much accuracy and making sure she's not getting the true benefit of that turn meter gain from missing and getting resisted on these champions who are trying to debuff to fill her turn meter. So that's going to conclude this video showcase with that fun little ending there. I mean, wasn't that fun for me, but regardless, she's going to the vault. So it is good I got some pieces off of her. So give me your thoughts. What do you guys think about this champion? Are you excited to use her in the Hydra? I know I wasn't able to showcase that, but I'm sure people are already in their minds figuring out optimal Hydra teams for Deliana straight out the gate here. As I mentioned in chat, you're going to see the chat full of people getting this champion, wondering what's next here. So if you have a friend, they're like, how should I build her? You can definitely toss them this video, and hopefully this guides everyone based on their progression levels on how to properly build this champion and apply it to your account, because every account is going to be different. There isn't one build that I can say that's going to be the best for everybody, because different champions, different synergy, different content goals, they all matter, and they have to be taken into consideration when building any champion in this game. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in my next upload.